Okay, lastly, not to go too long. Voice. I forget your name. What's your name?
Which one?
You, blue shirt.
Mike.
Mike. What are the 3 things that are necessary for the Pope to make an ex cathedra definition?
I don't know.
10 push-ups right now. Come on. Come on. Go. You can do it. Oh. Come on. I'll do it with you. Well, we'll do it together. I want to do some push-ups too. Right. Ready?
Sure.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh man, I wait for that. Okay. We're good. Come on. Okay, now you guys are gonna be like, oh man, I better pay attention.
Well, I actually need to do more push-ups.
I haven't done push-ups like in a year or more, probably. I don't know. So, where was I? Okay. The Mass.
The 3, you asked the 3 conditions.
Oh yes. Do you know them?
He has to be. He has to be speaking to the. Wants to be declaring doctrine to the whole church for belief.
Of faith and.
On faith and laws.
He has to have the intention of.
The intention of becoming doctrine.
And of binding.
Fine.
And he has to speak with his
It's authority.
apostolic authority.
I was going to say, there's an interesting point about that. When arguing with the SSPX father is that while they make the arguments they do about Vatican II being pastoral and not infallible, they will admit what the ex cathedra formula for Vatican I is. But if you look at all the doctrines of Vatican II, they're enshrined in Fidei Depositum by JP2, where he uses the ex cathedra formula very clearly. And Lefebvre and his bishops jokingly called that the catechism of JP2. So when we actually use the ex cathedra formula on matters of faith and laws for all of the teachings of Vatican II, they dismissed it even though it was ex cathedra.
Yeah,
The
The
catechism.
catechism.
The 19.
That's a good one, actually.
JP2 catechism.
Yeah, because that's the point we were making there is the catechism and the code of canon law. The code of canon law, is like exactly the definition of ex cathedra. He says, with my apostolic authority, with the authority of the apostles Peter and Paul, I with the intention of declare the code of canon.
Already.
Fidei Depositum was 1992.
What is the document called?
Fidei Depositum.
Begalian.
Yeah, Fidei Depositum, deposit of faith. It's at the beginning of every copy of his catechism. If you have the
Okay.
1990, yeah, it's about that.
Yeah.
1992.
It's
Is
like
it the
the
compendium?
like-
The compendium one? It says
The compendium.
You can get it online.
Yeah, which is like it teaches the whole Nostra Aetate.
It does.
Yeah.
yes.
It speaks of the
We got that
liturgy.
one in RCIA at the Nova Seminar.
slogged through
She
the
read the
entire
whole
thing.
thing.
It was very slow.
You read the whole thing?
Oh,
Well, she was caring. She wanted to do her catechism.
That is purgatory.
And I went,
this isn't true.
Yeah.
And I went back to the priest. I'm like, that? We don't worship the same God as the Muslims and the Jews. He's like, oh no, we do. I can make it work. Don't worry about it.
It's Catechism of John Paul II, true catechism.
right.
Yes.
It's like, well, Catechism of Council of Trent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pius X, Baltimore, this big. Very simple, to the point. Actually, we'll go into that because it's an interesting point. I don't forget. But let's go into the Mass real quick. With the Mass, there's so many things we could cover. The changes that were made in the Mass. It's important to understand also this point of argument. One should not say that there were 6 Protestant pastors doing the new Mass. That's a wrong statement. That's not how it happened. They were advisors.
Right.
And I say that because when you're arguing, if you make the statement wrong, they call you up on it, and it's like, it's a big problem that I faced. Because a lot of the websites and YouTube videos, they say these things, and then you go like, oh, they said this and that, and they deflate you. So, very graphic in my things. So, it's important to state it as it was. They were advisors, but the whole of the changes of the Mass were designed to make the Mass a little bit more Protestant, less objectionable to our separated brethren. And you see that in the changes. They removed all the naming of the saints. To be clear, they allowed for you to continue saying the saints, but now it was optional. And which priest is going to use the optional form that is longer? You're going to go to the shorter one. That has no sense. They remove the confiteor. The main 2 points that you want to focus on when you're arguing with someone is the Eucharist and the sacrificial nature of the Mass. Don't go, again, I mean, you can, but it's no use to go into all the other accidental changes. Go into these 2 because these 2 are undeniable and they are strong and serious enough. The sacrificial nature, the new Mass, the new Missal, spoke of the Mass as a gathering of the faithful, the assembly, the commemoration of the Lord's Supper. They removed entirely the sacrificial nature of the Mass, meaning it's a sacrifice offered to the Most Holy Trinity of the second person of our Lord Jesus Christ.
So they changed it from Good Friday to Maundy Thursday.
They changed what?
So in other words, instead of the Mass being Good Friday, the Mass is now just Maundy Thursday.
Oh,
It's just the meal.
Well, Monday, Thursday has a Mass.
Well, I know, but
I know what you mean.
that's how
Yeah.
they view it now. It's just the meal.
Yeah.
There's no sacrifice.
And all the changes that they made around that was for that. They removed the priest out of the equation because the priest obviously portrays the sacrificial nature. He's acting in the person of Christ. Now you're sitting on the side and there's going to be someone else reading and someone else doing this and someone else distributing communion because you're just a presider now. You're not a sacrificial minister. So that's the one thing that you can argue. Someone might say, well, that's not true. Now they went back to that. Now we have the extraordinary form, all that stuff, right? Yes.
Bishop has talked about this, that he said that's more of the sacrificial, the sacrificiary sacrifice. There's no sacrifice for sin, because they do have something about sacrifice of praise and thanksgiving, but nothing about
Yeah.
propitiation for sin.
That's true.
So-
Because they remove all the concept of sin and hell
Yeah.
as much as they
So,
could.
yeah, you have to be, when you're, like you say, you have to be precise with these people sometimes.
Mm.
Because they say, oh, we always say sacrifice for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But they don't make a sacrifice for sin, for propitiation.
And now they're coming back to the idea of sacrifice a little bit.
Mhm.
So that's one that, you might get an answer against it, but you always have the one of the Eucharist. The respect that is due to the Eucharist, if it's really there, that is clearly, again, organizational level is not done. From the moment of not allowing you to kneel, which is an act of adoration, now you don't do it because now it's just basically a symbol for us. The part of not receiving him in your hands, where the particles can be, dismissed or thrown into the floor, or you can put it in your pocket, put our Lord in your pocket if he's there. And that is something that even in the most respectful Novus Ordo is not kept, because even in the most respectful Novus Ordo, the priest doesn't keep his hands together. He doesn't have the body of our Lord in the corporal. He doesn't wash his hands anymore afterwards, or if he does, it's very little. So those are things that you can say that no one can argue against. It's like, if our Lord is truly present there, there is sacrilege in every single Novus Ordo Mass. And that is not just depending on the priest. Even if it's very reverent, they are not keeping the things that are necessary. That's established in the new rite. And so this cannot be a rite promulgated by a true pope because it's not holy. It lacks the holiness that liturgy is supposed to have. Does that make sense?
And although there are the conservative Novus Ordos who will say, oh, I'm certain that's our Lord present in the Blessed Sacrament. They do believe in the Blessed Sacrament.
No, they believe that's the problem. It's like, if you believe in it, then you have the priest, he has the host, he has the wine.
And there are some very conservative folks or priests
Mhm.
who are sure they're sure.
No, yeah, but in the rite, when it comes to the care that you have for the particles, yeah, well, it's not just that. It's in the Mass, the priest has a lot of cautions to take care of the particles, that they are gone, even in the most conservative one. The fingers is one. I consecrate, and I don't go and grab the missal with these fingers because I could leave the particles. They don't care about that. They consecrate, and then they move their fingers everywhere. Particles are being put somewhere else. They don't have the corporal anymore, some might do. But that one, actually, I don't know if the rite prescribes the corporal or not. But the purifications, the ablutions, all those things were removed, at least most of them. And so that is the problem where it's like, okay, this is not prescribed anymore in the liturgy.
Like, you've recently gone to the Indul Mass, right? Is that,
I haven't been in 4 years.
but do you think that they feel like they're being, what would you say that they've been?
At the Indult where they're simulating the Latin Mass,
Yeah.
they're trying to be reverent. Like my, spiritual director did
Yeah.
the stuff. But the other problem is if you still go, if you came from the Novus Ordo that day and you still went up and stood or knelt and put your hands out, he was required, because he's a diocesan priest. Even though he hated doing it, he would suffer and put it in your
Yeah.
hand. So
The indult is a different story because the indult does have all those prescriptions.
That's what that's what
Yeah.
arguing against.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah,
but
but-
are using posts that were consecrated by a random priest
Yeah.
on Wednesday.
right, they walk up to the tabernacle and go out.
So they don't.
But if
even
someone
want
argues
to-
against that, this is very important, don't let them go on that corner though.
Right.
Because it's like, hold on, my question right now is Vatican II.
Mhm.
That's all we're arguing. Is Vatican II a true council or not? Do you accept it or not? From Vatican II came the new Mass. The Mass that you're talking about is the one that I definitely advocate.
And then the consecration of bishops. is the
Right.
next.
Yeah. But it's like, don't go into that, because if you tell me that the indult is very nice, I'll say, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's why I do it. But the thing is, that's not what came from Vatican II. And our discussions right now, and this is, guys, very
And it
important.
was suspended. That's the thing. I mean, it was.
Yeah, there was a time where
suspended.
you
Yeah.
weren't allowed to do it.
Right.
So.
But that brings me to this very important point. When you're arguing with someone about this, as soon as they go off the branches, you go like, no, we're going to the, what do you call that, the log?
The trunk.
We're going to the trunk. That's what we're discussing, the trunk. I don't care about the branches. The trunk. Is Vatican II a good council or not? Yes.
So when they, if I ever told someone that your priest lacks respect in reference to the Eucharist, he doesn't lift his hands, he doesn't wash his hands,
Wrong.
they could,
That's not how you say it.
okay.
No.
Because I'm thinking they would probably just say, well, respect is kind of subjective. I could respect something a little bit less than you.
I know a very conservative priest here and there that does that. That's not the argument. The argument is the right established in Vatican II lacks that respect.
Okay. So we don't
Sorry.
we don't bring up the respect, or how do we?
Priests, bishops, Vatican II.
Okay.
Don't go through the
no
branches.
respect.
As soon as someone goes into the branches, it's like, I don't care about that priest. That's not the argument. Vatican II. That's what we're discussing. My priest is super conservative. He has the stigmata. He flies every time that he says mass. That's not my point. He might be very holy. I don't know. I don't care about that. My point is, do you think Vatican II is the right council? And so the things that you're considering here is Vatican II. And immediately they're going to that. Priest so-and-so, Bishop so-and-so, Bishop Bigan, or Bishop Schneider.
Yeah.
What's the other one?
Strickland.
Strickland and the white guy from Nigeria or somewhere. Sarah. It's like, no, those are people. That's not my question. My question is the doctrine. Vatican II. Go back to the trunk. That's the question. Yeah.
Wouldn't you be able to articulate the idea that there's an indult which is completely different than the Novus Ordo? That goes against one of the four marks of being one, because they have two different belief systems that they're being consistent with. Like one sees him as this is actually our Lord, but we don't care how we handle him. One cares. Is that not a breach right there? You can see almost two religions happening at the same time that are not in communion with each other. Just because they say, oh yeah, we're in communion with the Pope, but now they're doing something that he himself doesn't do. Then you have the Novus Ordo, and if the Novus Ordo is valid and licit, there should be no problem going to it. And there should be no reason to hold on to the indult, especially if it's true that the church should change with times.
It's a good point to make. I, the Novus Ordo guy, would say, well, but there is the Eastern liturgy and the Western liturgy, so there's all kinds of liturgies. But where that point would be good is if the person is saying, I only go to the indult.
Right.
Why is that? If this is the true church, go to both. They're both valid liturgies. Just like I could go to an Eastern liturgy that is in union with the church. I could go that, there's no sin. But if you tell me that you only go to this one because you don't like that one, then you are in a mistake there. And you're telling me yourself that you can see that.